Hey there, thanks for being here. Well, it's the first week of November, and that means it's time for the monthly Cape Coral real estate market update video. I do one of these every single month. This is a longer form video where I am going to give you all the stats and the facts and the figures of the Cape Coral real estate market, at least as they came about in the last month. So we're going to be talking about October of 2024's numbers. I'm going to give you some general stats on the market, and then we're going to break things down by different property categories. So we're going to talk about single family homes that are off water. We're going to talk about condos. Of course, we'll talk about Gulf access homes, and we'll also talk about vacant lots and the rental market, because that's always an important part of this Cape Coral real estate market. And then I'm also going to give you some analysis and some advice if maybe you're a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, or even if you're a seller in this Cape Coral real estate market. So make sure you stick around to the end for that. And if you're looking for something in particular, the chapters down there will help you find exactly the type of category that you're maybe looking for. If you're unfamiliar with this video or this channel, my name is Dustin Guthrie. I'm a longtime resident of Cape Coral, Florida. I live here with my wife and my 3 little kids, and I've been a full-time real estate broker here in Cape Coral for almost 20 years now. And I do one of these videos every month, like I said, but these are in addition to the weekly videos on just really good informational topics that I put out on a weekly basis. So if you're interested in Southwest Florida, or maybe you're moving to Cape Coral, or moving to Fort Myers, or moving to Punta Gorda, or maybe you even live here now and you're just interested in the area and want to keep up on a lot of important info like insurance or new developments that are happening here in town, reach over and hit that subscribe button, because I think you're going to get a lot out of these videos every week. Just try to give you a lot of great information, because I know if I can provide some value for you, then chances are you'll remember me when you do need a realtor here in Southwest Florida. And of course, my contact info is right there on the screen, but it's also down in the description of this video. Call, text, or email me anytime. I would love to hear from you and hear about your real estate goals and tell you a little bit about how I can help you out with those. So with all that out of the way, let's jump into this report. As you know, I always like to start off these reports by giving you, just for fun, giving you the highest and the lowest sales of the month in a couple different categories. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's start off with the lowest sales of the month. And again, we're talking about the month of October 2024. We'll start with the lowest condo sale of the month. And again, this is the entire city of Cape Coral. So the lowest condo that sold last month was this one right here, 642 Southeast 13th Place, unit number 8. It's in the Normark condo complex over there in the southeast section of Cape Coral. This is another age-restricted condo community. These age-restricted 55 and older communities generally sell for a little bit less than their counterparts that don't have that age restriction. So it's no surprise that a 55 and older condo was the low sale this month. But this one was just under 1,000 square feet. It was listed for $140,000. 2 bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, built in 1991. It's actually on the water over there. So that's pretty nice. But again, it was listed for $140,000. Looks fairly decent inside, maybe a little bit dated. They've got a nice pool in that community over there. It looks like it probably needed some flooring there. In a couple of the photos I'm seeing, some of the bedrooms maybe are missing some carpet. But overall, just not terribly bad for the price. And this one sold in just a little bit over 2 months for $132,500. So congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on a waterfront condo there in the southeast. It's pretty nice to have the low sale this month be on the waterfront like that. So this 55 and older condo was the low sale at $132,500. And congrats to the buyers and the sellers on that condo purchase. So all right, let's take a look at the lowest single family home that sold this month. Again, this is the entire city of Cape Coral for the entire month of October. And the lowest single family home to sell this month, once again, is down here in the southeast. It's in the Yacht Club neighborhood at 715 Monterey Avenue. This property was listed at $250,000, $250,000, but it was on the market for, gosh, almost a year, 330 total days on the market. It's one of these older properties. You know, the Yacht Club area down in the extreme southeast corner of Cape Coral is one of the only areas in Cape Coral that experienced a significant amount of flooding during Hurricane Ian. And the reason for that, you may have heard me talk about this on my other videos, the reason for that is largely due because of that was the first area to be developed in Cape Coral starting in the late 1950s. And so you had a lot of these older homes built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s that were built to lower elevation standards. And those are the pretty typical properties that we saw receive water damage, these 60s and 70s built homes in that yacht club area of the southeast. And this one's no exception. This one definitely had some flooding damage. It had the drywall removed, and a lot of it, quite a bit of work needed to be done in this property. But it was listed for $250 for quite a while, and they finally got serious on it, and it sold for $170,000 cash right at the end of the month of October. $170,000 was the low sale. This one was just under 1,500 square feet, 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. Had impact windows in it, so hurricane impact windows, that's a nice feature to have, and at least that would help out a little bit on their homeowner's insurance. But this is a pretty prototypical home that we see with these flood insurance, these high flood insurance rate issues. You know, these flood zone homes built in these early 1960s, 1970s, those lower elevation standard homes are the ones where we're seeing this, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a year in flood insurance. And so typically when we see these homes, especially when they have damage like this, you're almost entirely limited to cash buyers who are going to come in there and buy the house and then maybe just self-insure, not carry flood insurance. But it looks like there's some work to be done there, but congratulations to the buyers and sellers. We haven't seen too many single-family homes get under that $200,000 mark this year. I think there's only been a couple of months where we saw under $200,000 on the single-family homes anywhere in the city. So definitely congrats to the buyers and the sellers. That work to be done there, but that's a pretty good deal, even at that damage for $170,000. All right, so I did this last month. I want to do it this month too, and that's include the lowest Gulf access home sale of the entire month. You know, people love our waterfront homes here in Cape Coral, Florida. And when I say Gulf access, I'm talking about basically any home that's on a saltwater canal where you can have a boat behind your house and get out to the Gulf of Mexico. That's the name Gulf access. So typically, and we'll see this here in a little bit when I dig into the statistics of this particular category, but our median price generally floats around the $700,000 or $800,000, in some cases a little bit higher than $800,000 mark. So this is definitely one of our more expensive property types here in the city of Cape Coral. But this home was listed for $350,000, and it was listed for a while at $350,000. It was actually the cheapest home on the market that offered that Gulf access there in the back of the house. This home, again, is in the southeast, 207 Southeast 37th Lane. Was built, once again, older home in that southeast location. It was built in 1969, but 3 bedroom, 2 bath, just over 1,400 square feet of living area on a Gulf access canal. It had a 1-car garage there. But again, you know, this is another typical example of one of these older homes in the southeast that's in a flood zone. So these are the types of homes that are going to have those more expensive flood insurance policies, which is why we're seeing a little bit lower values on those things versus a lot of the other properties that are maybe a little bit newer or maybe not in the flood zone. So this home just looks dated. It didn't look particularly like there was too much wrong with it, but it did sell for $275,000. It's a cash sale. $275,000 is a pretty strong discount off that $350,000 list price on there. But that's a pretty good buy. We don't see too many. There's probably only a handful of Gulf access homes that have transferred this year under that $300,000 mark. And in fact, I was checking the market yesterday. I don't think there's one. There's maybe one home in the entire city that's listed under $400,000. So to see one transfer at $275,000, it's a pretty good deal for that buyer. And I'm sure there was plenty of work to be done in there. I'm sure the inspection turned up a few things, but nevertheless, congrats to the buyers and the sellers on that. $275,000 was the lowest Gulf access home that sold in the entire city of Cape Coral for the month of October 2024. And so on that note, let's get over to the fun ones, which are the highest sales of the month for the entire city of Cape Coral for the month of October 2024. All right, so the highest sales of the month of October, once again, we'll start off with condos. And when I say condos, and just like when I get into the actual statistics of the market here in a minute, when I give these statistics about condos, I'm talking about high-rise, low-rise, I'm talking about townhomes, I'm talking about attached villas, basically anything that's not a single-family home, I'm kind of lumping into the same category under the umbrella term of condos, so just keep that in mind. And the high condo sale for this month is, once again, this is probably the last 4 out of 5 or maybe 5 out of 6 months, the high condo sale has been in this same community. It's a brand new development within Cape Harbor in the southwest section of Cape Coral. If you're unfamiliar with Cape Harbor, it's a big marina community. They've got high-rise condos, mid-rise condos there, and they've got villas, and they've got single-family homes. And there is some new development going in there right now called Marina Villas. Phase 1 just got finished in there, and this is part of Phase 1. But this is an attached villa on the water over there at 5810 Shell Cove Drive, Unit 124. This is one of their single-story attached villas. It has a 2-car garage. Brand new, big high ceilings in there, just under 2,600 square feet. So they're pretty large, at least for a villa like this, for an attached villa. 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Again, right there on a beautiful Gulf access canal there in Cape Harbor. And this one sold right at the end of October, once again, for $994,703. So just under $1 million. The one we saw last month, I believe, sold for above $1.1 million. So this seems to be a pretty good price for this same type of villa. The one last month was one of these single-story attached villas as well. So $994,703. I wish there was some more pictures to show you here. They don't have too many because this is the developer's listing, and they put this out there before they actually finished building this place. But these are finished there in Cape Harbor, and actually they've started on Phase 2 in that community right now. So there's some other ones that are available now and are coming up available. So if this looks like something that you're interested in, get a hold of me. I'd love to tell you about it because I do really love that community of Cape Harbor over there. And if you're interested about Cape Harbor, I've got a website, capeharbor.net. It's on there on the screen right now. So go check that out because there's some really beautiful properties in there on the water in the Southwest Cape. It's a really nice community. So high condo sale for the month, $994,703. All right, I gave you the lowest Gulf access home sale, so I'm going to give you the highest non-waterfront home sale. I did that last month too. That was a new thing, so that seemed to be pretty fun. But let's check this one out. This one is in the gated community of Sandoval. It's a big single-family home, 2-story, on 2605 Stony Hill Court. Sandoval is on the western end of Cape Coral. It's basically right there on Veterans as Veterans goes up and turns north into the northwest section of Cape Coral. It's a beautiful community. It's a big gated community with a lot of really nice amenities in there. And this is probably one of the biggest homes in that entire development over there. But this property was just over 3,600 square feet of living area, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths. Not brand new, but not terribly old. 2013 it was built. And again, that's just a really, really nice community. The fees are pretty low in there. It's really good for families because it has a lot of really good family-oriented amenities in there. But this property sold in just 5 days. It was listed at $749,900 and sold in just 5 days for $725,000. And that was definitely the lowest non-waterfront, or the highest non-waterfront home to sell in the entire city of Cape Coral last month. Once again, sold right on Halloween. They've got a big Halloween celebration in there on Sandoval, so I'm sure the buyers wanted to get in there before that kicked off on Halloween night. But congrats to the buyers and the sellers. This looks like a big, beautiful property there in Sandoval, and $725,000 was the high non-waterfront home that sold in October. All right, let's get to the big guy. This is the largest sale of the month of October 2024. These are always almost consistent. In fact, I don't think I've seen one that hasn't been a Gulf access home. Obviously, our waterfronts are more expensive category of property here, but this was a beautiful Gulf access home in the Southwest Cape. Once again, really great area, and this is the first time in a long time that we haven't gone over the $3 million mark. I think there's only been maybe 1 or 2 other months this year so far that we haven't seen a $3+ million sale, and usually we have several, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. But we didn't have a $3+ million sale this past month, and so the high sale was this property at 4611 Southwest 26th Place. Again, over there in the Southwest Cape, this was listed just under $2.5 million, $2,499, and it was on the market for a while, 225 days, but it's a huge property, just over 4,600 square feet of living area, built in 2017. It's It's 4 bedrooms plus a den, 4 full bathrooms, got a beautiful pool package on the back of this and a nice dock. And again, listed at just under 2.5 million and sold again on the 30th of October, right at the end of October, for 2.3 million. And 2.3 million was the highest sale of the month this past month, and that's almost $1 million less than I think the previous month's high sale, which is usually a new custom home there on the water somewhere in a nice area like the Yacht Club in the Southeast, or a really top-notch waterfront location in the Southwest, usually where we see those high sales come on those custom homes. But nevertheless, congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on this one. $2.3 million for this beautiful golf access home. And that was the high sale of the month of October for the entire city of Cape Coral, Florida. All right, let's start to dive into these statistics. I always start off with the general stats, and then we'll start breaking things down by different categories. Okay, so like I said, we're going to start off with just the broad overall statistics, and then we'll break these categories down by, single-family homes, off-water, golf access homes, condos, things like that. So this is everything that's basically a residential property. This doesn't include vacant lots, but we'll get into those here in a little bit. But let's start off with the number of sales. Take a look at this 2-year graph. We sold, as an entire market, we sold 373 residential properties in the month of October. That's down just slightly from September's number of 401. You can see as we got towards the end of the summer, activities just dropped off, and that's really just a function of the time of year. This is a very slow time of year in any given year, especially as we get into the later months with Thanksgiving and Christmas, the holidays coming up. We're going to just slow down as a market. That's anticipated every single year. So I don't think there's anything meaningful to glean from this drop off in activity here. And as an overall market, we've actually had a pretty solid year. We've sold more properties thus far this year than we did last year. It's only a few dozen more. So it's not a tremendous amount more than we sold last year, but we're doing pretty good in spite of the interest rates, the overall interest rates being, a percentage point or more higher than the average was last year. And you can see this 2-year chart. We actually peaked out this past, in terms of activity, we peaked out in this past spring. We sold quite a few properties in March, April, and May. And, that was in spite of a 7 to 7.5% average mortgage interest rate back then. You can see we had a pretty good spike back in 2023 during those same months, not quite as big as this year's. And that was when, interest rates were down around 6%. So we're doing pretty well in spite of high interest rates and in spite of maybe a little bit more shakier of an economy than last year. So, all signs have pointed to a pretty healthy year for us as a Cape Coral real estate market. Again, we'll probably see this activity slow down some more as we get into November and December with the holidays. That just happens every year. But we're setting ourselves up, at least so far, to have a fairly active winter and spring season once we hit that January 2nd mark, and activity usually starts to spike up. So we'll pay attention to that. But overall, 373 residential properties sold in the month of October. Let's go ahead and take a look at the median price. And again, this is the overall median price. So this is including that $140,000 condo sale that we just saw, and it's including that $2.3 million waterfront home that we saw. So the median price, we're right in the middle here. Take a look at this graph. Again, 2 years. This median price last month ticked up a little bit from the previous month. We were at $390,000 for a median price in the month of October. That's up from September's number of $375,000. But you can see overall, we've had very slight declining trajectory really in the last, I would say, 18 months. But there hasn't really been a huge drop off. We've been pretty consistent as a market over the course of the last 2 years. The high point on this chart is October of 2022. I usually like to throw that month out. The high point there on that October 22, that number is 415,000, but that was right after the hurricane, and that was all just kind of wonky. That was right after Hurricane Ian. And so if you take that number out, then our high point on this chart was actually January of this year, January of 2024, when the median price was $408,500. So we've kind of bounced up and down a little bit, but overall, I would say, if you take that October 2022 number and you take the October 2024 number, 24 months, our median price has gone down by about 4%. So, I've mentioned this on almost every market report that I've done this year, and I don't hear it talked about nearly enough, and I think it's very, very important. Keep in mind the official U.S. inflation numbers for 2022, the official inflation number was 8%, and in 2023, the official number was 4.12%. So you take that 2022 to 2023, the official numbers, and that's based on CPI, Consumer Price Index, which doesn't take into consideration energy and food prices. And I don't know about you, but those are some of the higher priced things that we've seen in the last couple of years in terms of prices going up. I know the grocery store prices are more, and certainly gasoline prices are more as well. But if you just take the government's official numbers, that's a little bit over 12% inflation in 2 years. And real estate's generally a good hedge against inflation. It usually keeps up and even outpaces inflation over the long term. So if you consider that real estate's held its own against that inflation number, we've seen prices go down 6% in the last 2 years, but you really need to stack in that 12.12% in inflation over the course of those 2 years. And so we've corrected as a market, above 18%. We're down about 18%. So I think that's very, very important to keep in mind. I don't hear nearly enough people talking about the inflation. We've had a couple of years of heavy inflation, and so I think our market has definitely corrected more than it looks like it has, at least on paper with these graphs. Let's move over to the inventory. Obviously, inventory has been a very important thing this year, and especially in the start of the year, we were having inventory issues that were just kind of getting out of control. But I want to show you this graph because we actually peaked out. We had a couple of years where inventory was going up, up, up. It was probably artificially slow back, at the height of the market. Probably spring 2022 is when the market kind of peaked out. So artificially lower inventory numbers back then, and we've kind of climbed consistently ever since then, especially in the months of 2023 leading up to the first few months of 2024. But this graph peaks out in April of this year. We were going up, 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 and then it peaked out in April where we had 4,308 properties actively on the market for sale in April of this year. But ever since then, we've seen a consistent decline. In fact, it was month over month until last month. Last month was the first time that it actually went up a little bit. Nothing really meaningful, and I think that largely has to do with just the slower time of year, and we didn't sell as many properties last month. But in the month of October, we had 3,688 properties actively on the market. That was our inventory number. And if you take that and measure it against the high point back in April, just since April, we've already reduced inventory almost 14.5%. So we're heading in the right direction on inventory. I'd like to see it get down a little bit further, but we're almost on par with where we were last year. Last October in 2023, we had 3,394 properties actively on the market. So we're not too far off. We're only, essentially 300 properties more on the market this past month than we did 12 months ago. Now, the big increase in inventory came from 2022 to 2023. So if you take October, if you look at the two-year increase in inventory, we're up about 57.33% from where we were in October 2022. But I think those were lower than normal numbers. And I'd really like to see a little bit more inventory get down. If we can get down a little bit, closer towards where we were at the beginning of 2023, I think we're going to be looking pretty good as an overall market. But if you look at just the 1 year increase, we're only up about 8.7% from October of 2023. So we're going to look to see if that inventory trend continues in the downward direction. Again, we're going to have slow months in November and December, but barring some unforeseen circumstance, in the broader macroeconomic conditions of the country and in the world, if we slide into a recession or something, all bets are off. But it doesn't look like we've got a recession on the horizon. The Dow just hit a brand new record in the wake of the election a few days ago, and so all signs point to our market continuing to be really healthy, and we're really setting ourselves up to have a pretty solid amount of buying activity this winter and spring. So we'll continue to keep an eye on all of these, but let's go ahead and start breaking these numbers down. I always start off with the biggest category of property that we have here in the city of Cape Coral, and that's off-water single-family homes. So single-family homes that are not on either a Gulf access canal or a lake or a freshwater canal or something. These are off-water single-family homes. Let's get into these. All right, so non-waterfront single-family homes, it by far makes up the largest category of property that we have in the city of Cape Coral. We see more sales in this category than any other category that we're going to cover today. So we're going to keep the same format, and let's go ahead and start with the number of sales. So again, this is a 2-year graph of the number of sales, and these are off-water single-family homes. So again, slower month. Last month, October, we saw 256 of these sales. That's down from September's number of 290, but 256, I mean, again, like I said, this is the largest category of property that we have here in Cape Coral that makes up, what is that, almost 70%, just under 70% of those 373 total residential sales were non-waterfront single-family homes in this category. And you look at this chart, in terms of the number of sales this year, our high point was back in May. We had really strong months in that spring, March, April, May timeframe. We had 402 back in May. That's almost what we did in May of 2023. That was the high point on this entire chart, was May of 2023, where we sold 405 of these properties. But something that I find really, really interesting, we sold 256 off-water single-family homes last month. 103 of those or 2023 and newer. So newer properties or brand new construction homes made up 40% of the sales here. So we're seeing a lot of properties sell in this category that are brand new construction homes, and a lot of those are in the Northeast and the Northwest, up there where the production builders like D.R. Horton, Lennar does some scatter lot builds up there and things like that. These larger regional and national companies building these sort of entry-level products up there in the Northeast and the Northwest, they're able to offer a pretty solid new construction home at a pretty decent price, and they're offering a lot of incentives right now. And so I think that's one of the main reasons that you're seeing a big chunk of this category of property sell as new construction properties. So I thought that was interesting. 103 of those sales occurred in the month of October. But let's go ahead and look at the median price. So off-water single-family homes, median price, again, this chart hasn't moved a whole lot in the last couple of years, but it ticked up quite a bit from September to October. September was actually the low point on this entire chart, September of 2024, and then we bounced back up. And this year, or this past month in October 2024, the median price for off-water single-family homes was $377,500, which was up from September's number of $352,250. So it's bounced around a fair amount, but overall it stayed pretty flat. And actually, if you look back just 12 months ago in October of 2023, median price was actually lower last year than it is this past month. So October 2023's number was $370,995, basically $371,000. So we're actually up, almost 2% from where we were then. Now, we've bounced around quite a bit, so I don't think that's a hard and fast rule that our prices are up a full, 1.5, 2% from where we were last year. I still think overall, if you averaged all this out, we'd be down a little bit in price, not much, but we'd be down a little bit in price. And actually, if you take this all the way out to 2 years, October of 2022, again, that was kind of a wonky month because that was right after Hurricane Ian, but the median price back then was $385,000. So we would be down about 2% on the 2 year. But I think one thing that this doesn't take into consideration, and again, 40%, 103 of these sales were brand new construction homes, and what this chart doesn't take into consideration is those incentives that those builders are offering. So they may be selling those properties at roughly the same price as they were 12 months ago or even 24 months ago. But what you're not seeing is $20,000 or $30,000 in paid closing costs or things like that, some incentives that these production builders are giving some of these new construction home buyers. So I think they've played with the numbers a little bit here, and I definitely think that we're overall, if you factored those things in, we'd be down a little bit more than this chart maybe makes it look like. But 377.5 was the overall median price for off-water single-family homes. I want to talk about a couple different subcategories of this. Again, we talked about the new construction properties. If you break those down by the median price, 2023 or newer properties, the median of those 103 sales that we saw last month was 370,000. And again, the reason that that is lower than the actual overall median price in this category is because most of those sales are occurring in the Northeast and the Northwest. The new construction stuff are definitely sort of an entry-level product up there. They're on well and septic systems, and they're kind of the lower-priced single-family homes. You know, there's only, I think, 10 new construction homes that were in the Southeast and Southwest. So you're talking, what is that? 93 of them were in the Northeast and the Northwest. That's why that median price is so low for the new construction stuff. If you break this down further by pool homes and non-pool homes, homes without pools, off water, so basically the lowest entry level for single family homes, off water without a pool, 349,000 was the median price for that. And that brings me sort of to my next point. I want to show you this chart, which is pool homes. These are off water pool homes in the city of Cape Coral. Take a look at this. This is sort of a different scenario than we've seen on that last graph, when the overall graph didn't really move too much over the course of the last 2 years. This one's noticeably moved in a downward trajectory. And I think the reason for that is, you know, pools are more of a luxury item. I think as the broader economic conditions have sort of tightened up on people, and people have started kind of checking their wallets and making sure they're you know, a little more thrifty with what their spending is. The first thing that goes out the window is those luxury products. So pool homes maybe aren't as in demand as they were a couple of years ago when economic conditions were a little bit better. But the overall off-water pool home median price last month was $425,000. And when you look back just 12 months ago, it was $470,000. So we're a full $45,000 less than we were 12 months ago on pool homes. That's a downward shift of about 9.6%. And it's bounced around too, so that's not a hard and fast rule. And if you look all the way back in October of 2022, which is the high point on this, again, you know, a little bit wonky with Hurricane Ian being the month before there, but average off-water pool home was $500,000 back then. So we've come down a fair amount since then. I think the priorities have kind of shifted, and there's a lot more folks out there that are maybe choosing to buy a cheaper non-pool home with maybe the intention of a couple years down the road, when the market gets a little better, or when the economic conditions get a little better, you know, you can always put one in later. So I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to mention that pool homes have taken more of a noticeable hit in the last couple of years than just the overall off-water single-family home market. But let's look at the inventory again. And same sort of pattern that we see in the overall market. We had 2,165 of these properties actively on the market last month. That's down just 2 from September's number. So at least we're going in the right direction. We're going downward. September was the first month that we've seen since the high point on this chart, which was April. 2,439 of these properties were on the market in April, and we've come down month over month since then. Basically until September. It took a slight tick upward from August to September, and now it's coming back down a little bit. So we'll hopefully continue to see this inventory reduce, and we're getting closer and closer to where we were 12 months ago on this inventory chart. Just in October of 2023, we had 2,007 of these properties. So we're only, you know, roughly 160 or so properties more on the market this past month versus 12 months ago. That represents about a 7.9% increase. And again, the majority of this inventory increase on this 2-year chart was the months between the end of 2022 and the first few months of 2023. So if you look at this from a 2-year perspective, we're up about 45.5%, 45.7% from October of 2022, when there was only 1,486 properties on the market. If we get back down to 1,486 properties on the market, prices are going to skyrocket. So we don't necessarily want to get to that. I mean, I'm sure as a seller, you might want to see that happen, but if we can get back to a little more manageable level of inventory that we saw maybe, in the beginning to middle of 2023, I think that's a healthy position to be in. So we've got a little bit more work to do on the inventory front. We're going to have a couple more slow months, but now that we're past the election and it looks like the broader economy is starting to do decently well, interest rates are going to start coming down pretty soon. Interest rates are still high in spite of the Fed reducing the rates a couple of times. So that should eventually translate into lower mortgage interest rates. So that should coincide with our main buying season in winter and spring, and hopefully we'll get under 6% at some point next year. And I think all of those conditions are going to help our market out, and we're going to probably continue to see this inventory continue to reduce. But we'll just keep paying attention to it, keep watching these videos. I'll keep you updated on this and every other category. But let's go ahead and finish this one up, and we'll start with the next category of property, which are everyone's favorite category of property. That's our Gulf access saltwater canal homes here in the city of Cape Coral. Let's get into those. Okay, so Gulf access single family homes. And again, when I'm talking about Gulf access, that's basically any home that's on a body of water where you can get out to the Gulf of Mexico. So mostly talking about saltwater canal homes here in the city of Cape Coral, but it also includes any homes that sold that are maybe right on the riverfront or something like that. So let's get into this. This is definitely the most expensive category of property that we have here in the city of Cape Coral. It's also our flagship category. I mean, we're pretty much internationally known for our waterfront property here. So let's get into these. So here's a 2-year graph of the number of sales per month here. Again, slower month last month. We only sold 44 Gulf access homes in the month of October. That's not out of the ordinary. This is very much a category of property that has most of its activity in the spring and the winter season, that main winter-spring season. And main reason for that is just more of the snowbirds and the retirees tend to sort of gear towards this type of property. So we're seeing more of those sales in those winter and spring months. But 44 sales, it's about basically where we were last year, a little bit less. We're down from last month, or the previous month, September, we had 52 sales. But 12 months ago it was pretty slow as well. We had 53 sales back in October of 2023. So we're not in uncharted territory. We've still sold quite a bit more of these homes this year than we did last year up to this point. So we've sold about 37 more Gulf access homes so far in 2024 versus where we were this time last year in 2023. It represents about 5.2% increase. So we're selling a lot of these properties, but again, a lot of it happens in the winter and the spring months. And we actually peaked out on this chart back in May of 2024. We sold 110 of these properties back in May, so well over double where we were this past month in October. If you break these numbers down by the different areas of Cape Coral, Cape Coral is divided into 4 quadrants. We're in the northeast, the northwest, southeast, southwest. Only 3 of those have Gulf access homes in them. So the southeast, the southwest, and the northwest. And the vast majority of this past month's activity has been in the southeast. Half of these properties that sold last month were in the southeast. 18 of them were in the southwest, and only 4 sales up in the northwest section of Cape Coral. And that kind of brings me into my next point here. When we look at the median sale price, let's take a look at that. The southeast obviously made up half of these sales. And the southeast is where we find a lot more of our older homes, because again, it was basically the first area to be developed starting back in the late 50s. And so we see a little bit, the homes tend to be a little bit older in the southeast versus the southwest and the northwest. But here's the 2-year chart for median price for Gulf access homes. We don't have a tremendously large sample size at 44 properties, so that's why you're seeing this kind of bounce up and down month to month. But the median price of those 44 properties that sold last month was only $683,250. That's down from September's number, was $700,000. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a trend in the downward trajectory. If you take out that October 2022 high point where it was 900,000, again, right after the hurricane, the high point on this chart was February of this year, where it was 852,500. So we went from a median price of 852,500 in February to 683,250 in October of this year. That's a 20% reduction. Have we had a 20% downward correction in the market? No, I don't think that we have. In fact, I think it's been relatively flat. It's been down a little bit in the last 12 months, but overall, I think it's been pretty flat. I think really that's just the nature of having a lower sample size at 44 and having half of those essentially be in the southeast, where these properties tend to be a little bit less expensive because they're older homes. So 683,250 would be a low point on this graph, but again, we'll look to see that bounce back up. It may not bounce up too much in the next couple of months because, again, we're not going to have too many of these Gulf access sales come November and December, but it will start to spike up after January 2nd, basically, is when the activity picks up tremendously. So March, April, May of this next year of 2025, I expect these numbers to be back up well into the 800s, probably mid 800s. But overall, we're probably somewhere, if you had to kind of smooth this graph out a little bit, my gut is that we're maybe down about 10% from where we were 2 years ago if you averaged everything out. But again, it's just tough with a smaller sample size. You're not seeing that many. But I think overall, if you averaged everything out, we're probably somewhere in the low to mid 800s in terms of just an average Gulf access home price in the city of Cape Coral. But if you break these numbers down once again by the different quadrants, starting in the southeast, the median price for a Gulf access home in the southeast section of Cape Coral last month was only $610,000. So the fact that half of these homes were in the southeast, that $610,000 brought that median price down because of those 18 sales that were in the southwest. Median price there was $781, and in the northwest there was only 4 sales. But we're seeing the majority of the sales that are happening in the northwest right now are brand new construction, beautiful homes up there. And so the average up there was 1.02 million, so above a million in the northwest section of Cape Coral. So it's definitely a function of the majority of the sales being in the southeast, and the southeast being older homes with lower price points. So that's why our median price was kind of dragged down a little bit this month. But we'll see that probably bounce back up. If not in the next couple of months, then definitely as we get into the first quarter of next year. But we'll keep an eye on it. Again, I think overall, if you had to average everything out, we've probably corrected about 10% or so. But median price last month, $683,250, and we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Let's look at the inventory. So again, following the same pattern here on this one. And actually, we've done maybe a little bit better in this category on the inventory front. We definitely spent the end of 2022 and all through 2023 with an increasing trajectory of inventory. But we actually peaked out in February of this year, where there was 905 properties on the market. This past month in October, there was only 694. So we're down about 23.33% from that high point in February. And this category has month over month decreased. It's slowed down in the last few months just because the sales have slowed, but we're seeing more of these overpriced properties that aren't getting any activity on the market. We're seeing some of those be taken off the market. Now, maybe they'll come back as we get into the heavier season, the winter, spring season, so we'll pay close attention to that. This inventory number might tick up a little bit, but again, our activity is going to come up quite a bit. It's probably going to over double, but more than likely will over double as we get into the spring months. So 694 was our number. That basically is putting us very, very close to where we were 12 months ago. 648 Gulf access homes on the market in October of 2023. So we're only up about 7.1% from 12 months ago, but we're up 77.7% from where we were 2 years ago, where we were kind of artificially low when prices were very, very high still. So only had 393 Gulf access homes on the market in October of 2022. So we'll look to see that number continue to decrease. I would like to see it get under 600. If it gets under 600, I think we'll be doing really, really well in this category. But we'll just keep a close eye on it. Again, it's probably going to be flat for the rest of the year. We're not going to sell too many more of these in November and December and even January, if you think about it. People shop in 1 month. They shop if they're closing on a home in January. That means they shopped and they put it under contract in December. Not very many people are doing that in December because it's the Christmas holiday. It's right after the Thanksgiving holiday. People are spending time with family, doing things like that. So the activity really picks up in January, but we really don't see those sales that occur until February. January is usually a slower number, just again because people aren't contracting in December. They're contracting, a lot of them, in January, which means the sales are happening in February or maybe March. So we'll pay close attention to that. But again, we're heading in the right direction on the inventory front and Gulf access homes overall. That 694, when you're only selling 44 properties a month, that's 16 months of inventory, which sounds really scary. But back in February during the higher season, we were only about 7.5 months of inventory back there in the spring of this year. So that number will go down. Our activity will pick up, but we'll just keep a close eye on it. But overall, I like what I'm seeing in spite of that median price coming down. I think that's just a function of the lower sample size and more of those older homes selling in the southeast. So Gulf access homes are on the right track, but we'll continue to keep a close eye on them as we finish out these slower months of the year. Okay, let's go over to condos and townhomes. This has been by far the toughest category of property for this market. So let's jump into these. Okay, so again, condos and townhomes, I'm lumping everything in together because this is very much a smaller category of properties. So I'm talking about all types of condos: high-rise condos, mid-rise condos, low-rise condos, townhomes, attached villas, all of those things. Basically anything that's not a single-family home, I'm lumping together into the umbrella term of condos and townhomes. So this is very much a category, just like Gulf access homes, where we don't have much activity in the off-peak season. So very much winter and spring is when we see the vast majority of our condo sales. Once again, for the same reasons as Gulf access, a lot more of the retirees and the snowbirds and things like that are active in the winter and spring and not so much in the summer months. So here, take a look at this 2-year activity chart. This is the number of sales per month. Once again, we bounced back up. We had a very, very slow September month. We only sold 14 condos in September of this year. So we bounced back up to 29, but it's still pretty low activity. And if you add all these up, actually, this is the only category of property that we've seen this year where we've sold fewer number of units so far this year than we did last year. We've actually sold a little bit over 10% fewer condos this year versus last year. 10.2% works out to 46 fewer condos. It's not a lot because this year so far we've only sold 406 condos. In 2023 up until October, we had sold 452 condos. The main reason for this is a lot of the HOA fees went up as we transitioned from 2023 to 2024. The reasons for that was insurance costs rising in the wake of Hurricane Ian. Also some new rules that were implemented. We've gone over those basically, especially for condos that are 3 stories and higher. You got to set aside a certain amount of reserves for structural repairs and structural engineering inspections and things like that every 10 years once your condo building reaches a certain age. And those are expensive. So for those reasons, these HOA fees have gone up quite a bit in the course of the last 18 or so months. And we've just seen that kind of place a dampener on the demand for condos right now. So we're not just seeing a lot of activity in the condo market, and that's very much evidenced as we get into the median price. But median price for condos last month, again, we don't have a huge sample size. There's only 29 of these that have sold, and that includes everything from that $140,000 age-restricted condo we saw all the way up to that $900 and some thousand waterfront villa. So Both of those sales were included with those 29 sales last month. So right in the middle of that gets us to our median price of $250,000. That's just very up slightly from the previous month, 246, 250. But you can see, I mean, it bounces around a little bit because, again, we have smaller sample sizes in this category. But if you look at 12 months ago, I think there's a pretty clear trajectory that we've had pricing decreases in the last really 12 to 18 months, definitely 24 months. But October of 2023, our median price for condos was at $264,000. So we're over 5% less right now, about 5 1/3% reduction from just 12 months ago. And if you take it back to the high point on this chart, if you take out the hurricane month, which was November, we didn't sell very many condos in November of 2022. So that's the high point on this chart. Let's set that aside for now because I think that was just a wonky month. Condos actually peaked out price-wise in spring of 2023 versus the rest of the market. The single-family home market peaked out in spring of 2022. But our condo prices peaked out in April of 2023 at 305. So that was our high point. And now we've come down since then. We've come down a full 18% since that high point, which is whatever that is, 18 months ago or so. So condos are just hurting for mainly those reasons that the HOA fees are a little bit higher. Again, this includes everything waterfront and non-waterfront. If you want to look at the average Gulf access condo, the price for that was $322,500 last month. That was up slightly. Usually the Gulf access condos, they average out somewhere in the low 300s. And of course, they go up higher than that. You can go down to Cape Harbor and get a high-rise waterfront condo down there for $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. Tarpon Point, you see, $1 million plus sales in Tarpon Point, and then we go all the way down to the low sale this past month was that $140,000 age-restricted condo, and that was on the water too. So they generally average out in the low 300s. That's about what you can expect to pay for a decent condo, Gulf access condo in the city of Cape Coral. But $250,000 was the median price for those 29 sales last month. Let's take a look at the inventory. So we follow the same pattern here. This is the tier chart for the inventory. Saw a big increase as we rounded out 2022 and all throughout 2023. It was an upward trajectory. We peaked out once again in this category in February of this past year. 527 condos were on the market in February, and we've come down considerably since then. So we're heading in the right direction. We had 426 condos actively on the market in the month of October for this year, and that represents about a 19.2% reduction in inventory from the peak in February, but we're still up slightly from where we were this time last year in October 2023. There was only 397 condos on the market. We're up about 7 1/3%, 7.3% from where we were last year. So we've got some more work to do. We're up a full 78.2% from where we were 2 years ago in October of 2022. There's only 239 condos on the market back then. So once again, that's kind of, I don't want to say artificially low, but it's lower than it's one of the reasons that we saw the price increases the way we did, because our inventory was very, very low. So we need to do some more work on the inventory front. I'm not expecting it to get back down to that 2022 number, but if we can get back around that 300 number, I think we'll be in pretty good shape in spite of the lower buying activity for condos. So still think we're going to have a pretty decent year for condos, or decent season, winter and spring season for condos. I think if anything, pricing will probably level out. I don't think it's going to turn around and go back up again. But I think pricing will be pretty flat as long as we can continue to get our inventory under control and demand comes up a little bit this winter and spring. So we'll just have to keep an eye on it. And I'll be sure to give you these stats every single month on this market report. So make sure you're subscribed, and especially if you're interested in condos, if you're a buyer or even if you're a seller in it, I think condos are going to be important to continue to watch, because we want to see how this whole thing shakes out with these larger HOA fees. Hopefully we can turn this market around a little bit and flatten those prices out in 2025. The interest rates are definitely going to help out in that regard. So that's the story with condos. Let's talk about vacant lots. Okay, so residential lots. I'm only going to talk about the off-water lots because that's the vast majority of the lot market. If you're interested in Gulf access lots, we really only sell maybe 10, probably less than 10 in any given month. Price-wise, they usually average out to somewhere in the low to mid 200s, and again, it just depends on where it's located, if it's in the southwest or the southeast or the northwest, and how far away it is from open water, and whether or not it has a seawall on it. But I'm not really going to get into that on this video. Really going to concentrate on these off-water lots, and check out, this is the activity, the number of lots per month for the last 2 years. We sold 71 off-water residential lots. Again, these are single-family home lots. I'm not talking about commercial lots or multifamily lots. These are just basically an average lot that you're going to build. Someone's going to build a house on eventually. 71 lots last month. This activity kind of bounces around a lot, and that's kind of to be expected. Month to month, at least, we've seen an overall downward trajectory in the activity of lot purchasing from the high point about 18 months ago. And if you look back in spring of 2023, March of 2023 is the high point in this chart. That was 190 lots we sold that month. These lot sales are usually driven by a lot of the production builders. They'll go out and buy packages of lots, 20, 30, 40 strong in some cases. So as you can imagine, it only takes a couple extra of those purchases to happen in any given month for that number to really bounce up. And that's kind of why you're seeing, September's number at 118 and October's number at 71. The overall activity has certainly gone down, but it kind of bounces around a little bit. And the vast majority of those lots that are selling are in the northeast and the northwest sections of Cape Coral. In fact, only 10 of these 71 sales last month were south of Pine Island Road. So vast majority of them are the less expensive well and septic lots up in the northeast and the northwest. And if we take a look at the price has actually been pretty steady, pretty darn steady for the last 2 years. You take out that hurricane month of November where it kind of spiked up there. We've been overall pretty steady on the lot market, and the median price last month was $46,100. That's up from September's number of $42,750. Again, most of these lots, you're not going to expect to see lot prices in the southeast or the southwest go for $46,000. This median price is largely being driven by the majority of those sales happening in those upper northeast, northwest locations where they're on well and septic up there. So 46,100 is pretty average. I mean, it's bounced around a little bit, but it's generally been somewhere in the mid 40s for the last 2 years. If you did look south of Pine Island Road, just the few sales, the 10 sales that did occur south of Pine Island Road averaged out to 84,750. So those central water and sewer lots are definitely almost double the average lot price that you're seeing for the well and septic lots up in southeast or the northeast and the northwest. But check out this inventory chart. This is the number of active listings on the market for residential lots out there right now, and it's actually kind of gone in the opposite direction of these other residential categories of properties. So we've been in a downward trajectory for 2 years now. There's only 1,149 lots on the market last month in October. That's just down slightly from September. We had 1,161, and back in August, 1,163. So it's been pretty steady for the last few months. But if you look back 12 months ago, in October of 2023, we were at 1,284. So we're down over 10% from where we were just 12 months ago. And if you take it all the way back to October 2022, when there were 1,892 lots on the market, we're down just above 39% in terms of the inventory. So it looks like things are kind of flattening out. But again, we're not seeing a whole lot of movement on pricing. It's a little bit easier for folks to just kind of list a lot and leave it sit out there for a long, long time. So we'll see a lot of these lots maybe sit out there for, in many cases, a year or two before they sell. That's not really an indication that something's going on in the lot market or anything like that. But inventory is definitely under control on the lot side of things, and we'll probably continue to see lower numbers of sales per month as we get into the remaining months of the year and into the starting months of the next year. But I don't think our pricing is going to go too far anywhere. It's going to stay somewhere in those mid 40s range on an average. But that's the vacant lot market. And let's go ahead and finish things out with the rental market. I've been doing this the last few months, so let's get into the rental market real quick and then we'll wrap up. Okay, so the rental market, why is it important in this Cape Coral real estate market? Well, I'll give you a kind of a brief rundown of what's occurred in the last few years, but basically if you go back to 2020, 2021 in the wake of the pandemic, one of the reasons that we saw our sale prices go up so quickly here is because we just really flat out had a shortage of residential properties here in the city of Cape Coral in the wake of that pandemic. There was a high demand, didn't have nearly enough homes and condos on the market, and as a result, pricing went up just because demand was outpacing supply. And as a result of that, our workforce housing was in dire straits. We didn't have nearly enough workforce housing here in the city of Cape Coral. By workforce housing, I'm just basically talking about usually lower dollar rental properties. And as a result of that, we had more real estate investors come in, both just individual onesie-twosie real estate investors buying a house with the intention of renting it out for a profit. But we also had these big corporations come in and build these gigantic 200, 300, 400 unit apartment complexes. And they started certainly a couple of years ago, and many of them got delayed after Hurricane Ian and things like that. But they're coming online now. So we're seeing a lot of these big apartment complexes come online, and it's sort of flooding the market with rentals. And on top of that, when our sale market kind of slowed down a little bit and people weren't getting these high dollars that they were getting back in 2022, a lot of these folks, when they weren't able to sell their property, they took it off the market, and a lot of them put them on as rentals with the intention of holding it out for a few years before they could sell it again when the market came back and sale prices were up a little bit higher. So as a result, you have this chart right here. This is the 2-year inventory chart. This is just my local MLS system. This doesn't include a lot of those big apartment complexes that are coming online right now. But take a look at this. Inventory really hasn't stopped increasing for the last 2 years. Back in October 2022, there was only 388 rental properties actively on the market. Again, that was indicative of that workforce housing shortage that we were going through. But since then, we've had a lot more come on the market, and we've actually got 822 rental properties on the market this past month. That's down a little bit from August, September, but I think the overall trajectory is the overall trend is still going to continue to go up. And again, these don't include those big apartment complexes. So we've got quite a bit more inventory that's even evident right here. But 822 rentals on the market, that represents over double what it was back 2 years ago, 112% increase from October 2022 to October 2024. And even 12 months ago, it was close, but we're still up from where we were 12 months ago. 804 is what we had in October of 2023. It's gone up and come back down a little bit, but I would imagine that it'll probably continue to go a little bit higher. I know it's a little bit tougher to find tenants these days, and as a result, check out this median rental price chart. Again, going back 2 years ago, October 2022, average rental price out there was $2,450. Again, that workforce housing was just not affordable back then because there was not nearly enough workforce housing back in 2022. So we had that high rental price, $2,450, but we've come down a full 22.4% just in the last 2 years. And the median rent price last month was only $1,900. So we're under $2,000 a month. That's down from September's number was $2,100. So we're down, a solid $200 a month from just September to October. But the overall trend is clearly downward, and we'll probably continue to see those rent prices continue to go down again. This data that we have right here is not inclusive of all of those big multi-hundred unit apartment complexes. So I'm not even sure what those things are renting for right now. I should probably know that, but maybe I'll check into that and let you know in next month's report. But overall, rental properties, you're getting just fewer dollars per month on these leases. It's a little bit tougher to find good tenants these days. A lot of inventory out there, and this trend is probably going to continue. So again, I just feel rentals are an important part of this market. I'm going to keep track of that. So look forward to continuing to see these numbers. I will report these back to you every single month on this Cape Coral real estate market update. But with that being said, let's get into advice for buyers if you're in this Cape Coral real estate market and you're a buyer, and then we'll talk some advice to sellers if you're looking to sell in this Cape Coral real estate market. All right, so if you're a buyer in the Cape Coral real estate market, what do you need to be paying attention to? What should you be looking at right now? Well, it's still a very, very good time to be a buyer in the Cape Coral real estate market. It has been pretty much all year at this point, certainly this summer. And as we get into the remaining months of the year, it's going to continue to be a slower market. So you've got an opportunity here to go in there. And again, there's still plenty of inventory out there. There's still plenty of choice for you as a buyer. So you need to look at, being picky. You can be a little bit pickier and you can negotiate a little better, especially if you're playing one seller off another. For the sellers that are out there, they're going to have to compete a little bit more for you as a buyer just because there's not as many of you in the market right now as there were a couple of years ago. So definitely think it's a good spot to be in as a buyer right now in the Cape Coral real estate market. I think that time is coming where that's not going to be the case anymore. So I think you've got a window of opportunity here. And, there's so many people are out there sitting on the sidelines waiting for us to have this big correction. But as we talked about towards the beginning of this video, when we went over the basic stats or the overall general stats of the Cape Coral real estate market, the pricing has definitely come down a little bit, but it's not factored in that inflation number. And I think we've had more of a correction now than a lot of people realize. And activity has still been fairly strong in spite of some really high interest rates. We're going to see those interest rates come back down, definitely here in the next few months and going into 2025. And those reduced interest rates are going to definitely help demand here. And that market's definitely going to turn around sooner than later. And so if you are in the Cape Coral real estate market and you're sitting on the sidelines right now waiting for the bottom, you need to start maybe paying attention and decide if you should jump into this market now before you miss your window of opportunity, because I don't think we're in danger of, next month the median prices of everything is going to go up. I don't think we're in any situation like that. But with these interest rates coming back down, we're past the election, we're past the uncertainty of that election and all that kind of stuff. And as long as we don't slide into a recession or anything like that, this market's definitely going to rebound. And as our inventory numbers get back more under control and those interest rates come back down and demand picks back up, we're going to start to see these prices flatten off and then start to go in the other direction. So definitely don't want to miss your window of opportunity here. But for the time being, you're in a pretty good spot. And definitely you can negotiate a little harder than you could a couple of years ago. And you've got a wider choice of properties with more properties on the market. So if you are a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, I urge you to reach out to me and we can talk about your individual situation and what you're looking for. Maybe put a plan together on what we need to target, when we need to target it, and put you in the best position possible to get the best property you can at the best price and terms that you can. So by all means, reach out to me, call, text, or email. I would love to hear from you. But yeah, we're still in a really good shape as a buyer in this market. It's very much a buyer's market. But your time is limited on that, so you need to be smart about it. Okay, so if you're a seller in the Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice to you and what do you need to be thinking about? Well, we're still in a pretty slow time of year. This market's been somewhat slow all year, even though we've sold more properties in most categories this year than we did last year. Activity's been flat, at least this summer. It's been pretty flat depending on what category you're in. And we're doing a little better on the inventory front, but we still got some work to do, and we need to get some of that inventory out before we start to see this market turn around and start to become more of a seller's market. It's definitely a buyer's market right now. There's still plenty of inventory out there that you have to compete with as a seller. So you need to be making sure that your property's priced right and it looks as good as possible so you can compete as best as you can with these other homes and condos that are on the market out there. And I say it every single month, but make sure that experience, that potential buyer's experience when they come to tour your property is as good as possible, especially in the first 5 seconds as they walk in through the front door. So make sure that drive up, make sure your curb appeal is looking good, make sure your house looks good and smells good in that first 5 seconds of walking through the front door, because they're going to decide in most cases whether or not they want to buy your house or your condo within that first 5 seconds of walking through the front door. So, spend some extra time to make sure your property is looking good and showing good, and then just price it right. The homes and condos that are out there, they're still selling, they're still getting activity, but you got to be priced right. And once properties are priced right too, they are selling somewhat close to list price. It's the average is about 97 to 98% of the list price. But the things that we're seeing is most sellers price them too high out of the gate, and so it requires some price reductions on their list price, maybe 2 or 3 times before they hit that right number, and then they sell for pretty close to the list price. So do what you can to compete with those other listings out there. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Again, our interest rates are going to come back down. We're past the uncertainty of this election at this point. So there's going to be some more buyers coming into the market, and provided we don't slide into a recession or anything like that, I think we're going to have a really solid winter and spring season. So there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel, but you need to make sure that in the meantime, you're just priced right and you're doing everything you possibly can to compete against those that other extra inventory out there. If you need some advice, either on pricing or beautifying your property, making it look good, or maybe even if you'd like some creative things that you can maybe do to pull a couple extra buyers away from these other listings on the market, by all means, reach out to me. Of course, my info is right there on the screen. You can call, text, or email me. I would love to hear about your individual property and what your plans are, and tell you how I can help you out with those. We're definitely seeing some success selling properties right now, but you just got to be really realistic with where you need to be, especially on price right now. So reach out. I would love to hear from you, but that's my advice to sellers. Okay, so to wrap things up and summarize the Cape Coral real estate market as it sits right here in November of 2024, I think a couple of big takeaways are we've had a solid year so far, especially in most categories of properties. Condos have been a little weaker, but the other categories, we've actually sold more properties this year in 2024 thus far than we did in 2023 at this point. So we're having a pretty solid year. We're in a very slow time of the year anyway, and activity has kind of dropped off quite a bit. I fully expect that to continue through November, the rest of November and into December, just because people are spending time with family for the holidays, for Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I fully expect us to hit the ground running come January 2nd, and activity's going to pick up quite a bit, in my opinion. I think all signs point to that. We're going to get these interest rates back under 7% and hopefully down closer back under 6% as we get into 2025. That's going to help out tremendously. We're past the uncertainty of this election, this contentious election, so people are at least feeling that they have a little more stability. I think that was going to happen regardless of who won. I'm not making a political statement there. I think people just don't like that uncertainty of that election hanging out there. So now that we're past that uncertainty, and hopefully we'll see those interest rates come back down, I think a lot more buyers will come back into the market this winter and spring. I don't think that's going to translate into any meaningful increase in pricing, but I think our pricing is going to be pretty flat as we continue to get the rest of the inventory that we need to get off the market. Some extra buying activity in the first and second quarter of next year is definitely going to help us out. That trend has already been happening all year, really since spring, at least in terms of the inventory going down. So we're heading in every metric, we're heading in the right direction, and I fully anticipate that we're going to be having smiles on our face come winter and spring, as long as something unforeseen doesn't happen, like sliding into a recession or something like that. So barring that, I think we're in for a pretty good winter and spring, but we're going to have another slow couple of months here as we get through the holidays. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you got a little bit out of this video, and if you did and you wouldn't mind, just hit the like button for me, because it helps me out. And absolutely, if you're not subscribed to this channel yet, by all means hit that subscribe button so you can be around. I promise I don't do videos this long every single week. Usually they're 20-minute videos just about really good informational topics or some exciting real estate or something like that. So definitely hit that subscribe button, and you can be around for not only those, but these monthly long-form market reports every single month. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you'll reach out to me if you are a buyer or seller in this market. I would love to hear from you. But beyond that, I'll see you on the next video here in just a few days.
Like and subscribe. Just kidding.